So we have Mohammed Majam here from the famous 360 Padel with the big event, the South African Invitational coming up this week. The eyes of the world are on this event here, and we have Majam, will give us a rundown of how things will go and a few insights into what we can expect too. How's it going?
Good. Yeah. It's been a very interesting morning watching the court base getting built, watching the court getting offloaded. There was a massive concert taking place at the stadium on Women's Day. Had 28,000 people, so we had to wait until yesterday morning for the stadium to be cleared out for us to start building. But we're full steam ahead. The teams are on the ground building the various components that will make up the stage or the arena, and which we'll watch hopefully some amazing paddle come Friday.
So is it quite a challenge to have a paddle court built onto a cricket field? Does that pose some challenging issues for you guys?
I think to build a paddle court, a mobile paddle court anywhere on any surface, whether it be in an indoor venue or whether it be on a field, a football field, cricket field, on a tennis court, we know that the Paris Major gets played at Roland Garros. So they're building it on top of a clay court. And I think the principles all are the same, that you got to build a base upon which you put the steel plates upon which the courts then sit. So yes, the principles are the same, and I think the challenge is the same wherever we do go. But yeah, I think that's where we are at the moment.
Okay, I mean, viewers of the World Paddle Show really want to know now. So you put this like crazy event, but what was the whole, the ideation of this whole amazing event with the top players, the top stars in the whole world coming together 3 days and battle it out with different combinations? Give us the rundown on that.
So I think where the idea came from was really when we saw the response of the South African paddle market to seeing live international players last year when Augsburger and Chozas came for the Durban Masters, and we saw the type of hype and interest that there was from this. And we know South Africa is one amongst the highest and fastest growing paddle communities globally, and we just thought at that point that we may be ready to see international paddle. Something of this nature has obviously not been done before on the African continent. Yes, there is the New Giza P2 event that takes place, but that doesn't always attract all of the best players. And I think it is part of the Premier schedule. Nothing to the type of scale in terms of what we're doing, in terms of the type of players that we're attracting, and for to see them play day in, day out. So I think when we were at the Durban Masters last year and saw the reception of the crowd, we started chatting about what would it take to bring the players to South Africa. And I think we had differing opinions amongst the committee around how and why and when we should go about doing this. And I think there was one of our committee members who said, look, if we're going to do this, we need to make it big. We need to do it in style. We need to make it, something that's unforgettable. And so I think, it was a pipe dream for the longest time until, we signed the first player, I think, who actually physically signed was, I think it was on the 29th of March, when Ane Galan signed as the first player to officially sign. And then that's when we really started believing that this could happen. And then in discussion with the co-tournament director, Pablo Velasco, we came up with the format around 2 teams and playing for points on a given day. We see that format worked really well during the World Cup. People really, were very interested in new pairings and seeing, a team-based competition. 360 Padel ourselves, we're known for our team-based, franchise-based paddle competitions. And so I think we sort of married that ideas of how we like to run paddle events with, the idea of Pablo, and that's how we came up with the unique pairings. And I thought, it was quite fun to put together these combinations of players that you ordinarily would never get to see, and probably in our lifetimes would never get to see certain of these pairing players ever playing together. So it was a unique opportunity to do this, and yeah, we've grabbed it with both hands.
So how did you go about that? I mean, that must have been a process on its own, deciding firstly who comes, who doesn't come, obviously offering those invitations, and then sitting like a fantasy league, type of guy sitting there and looking, okay, these combinations could work. I mean, how did that come together?
Precisely. I think we first needed to understand what's the roster looking like. Who will the 12 players be? Who will our replacement players be? Understanding that we needed to blend right-sided players with left-sided players, also just based on availability. We couldn't have, four right-side players and eight left-side players coming through. So we had to find a balance. We had to look at, who's injured, who's committed to other tournaments. And so we first worked on the roster. Once we had the roster was skewed. It was seven left court players and five right court players. But then we had a workaround. And then we had a committee or a subcommittee of three of us, myself, Naeem and Mamzi, who sat together, who amongst the committee who know the Premier Pedal circuit the best, and we came up with these combinations to try and make it as interesting as possible, based on what we know from rumors around who would be a good partnership, or what people have suggested in the past things like Galan and Cardona being a potential pairing in the future. So things like that. And we had the opportunity to actually make it come alive and take in that opportunity. We were quite surprised at how well the players took our suggestion and were quite amenable to it. There was zero pushback from them about playing with other players, and I think they're quite excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fans are also excited about. That's what, we used to seeing the same combinations play out. Whether we like it or not, some people can see the dominance of Cuello and Tapia, and I think this sort of breaks that sort of not momentum, but sort of breaks that sort of predictions as to know who's going to take it. And I think people want to see who is the king of paddle, and I think these type of combinations can bring about that. Although obviously it is a doubles game. From the players that have, I mean, almost every big name player in the world has signed on. Were there any players that you approached that were unavailable or couldn't make it for some reasons?
Yeah, look, it was a long process. Initially, we didn't have Tapia and Coelho on our radar. We were led to believe that they're not available. They had committed to other events, so we planned around that initially. Um, Mind you, the first player's agent that we actually spoke to is somebody that's not coming. That was Fedi Ngoto, was the first player agent that we actually spoke to in December. So yeah, I think there's commitments. We know there's WPL taking place in India. There's the PPL taking place in Guadalajara. Are two massive events that are running at the exact same time. There's the FIP Silver taking place in Serbia, and there's another gold event as well. So there's a lot happening on the calendar. We're grateful that we were able to grab as many of the top 10 that we do have, considering the competitive environments that we're looking at. So, yes, in a perfect world, I would take Chingoto, I would take Koki Nieto to round up that top 10. But it's not to be. But I think what we do have, and the players that we do have, even amongst those that are not part of the top 10, we've seen this year already, we've seen Augsburger and Cardona have some big results against the top players. We've seen Gonzalez having some big results as well. So I think even amongst the group that we do have, there is significant players. There's nobody in our lineup that we can have to say, oh, that person's a passenger, for example. And then, of course, Bella, this is probably the last time we are going to see him in a competitive environment. He's said that a few times now, that he's essentially coming out of retirement, and we had the media launch. He spoke about how he's had to go back into gym and get fit again and get to a match readiness, and how serious he's taking this. And just knowing, the type of person he is, I don't see this happening again. So it's an end of an era. It's probably the last time we'll see the 17-time world champion on a paddle court in a competitive environment. And I think that's an important thing. Is that the players are coming, and the way we approach the tournament is that this is not an exhibition. We are making it a competitive environment. Yes, we're not competing for major accolades or anything, but I think we don't underestimate the bragging rights that these players will have over each other, and the like. So yes, we do believe that this is going to be competitive environment that these players will find themselves in. And yeah, the last time we may get to see Bella on a court in a proper competitive match.
So, how are you able to get that to happen in terms of making the competitive environment? Is it to do with prize money, or is it the combinations? Obviously, personal pride, like you mentioned. How are you able to create this environment where this is beyond an exhibition?
I think the main thing is the personal pride. I think the having teams with a specific brand that we'll be launching soon for each team. We've seen it. We've seen it in the World Cup last year. Now, mind you, yes, that is, or that was Spain versus Argentina. It was a thought that actually crossed our mind you, that we could look at a Spain versus Argentina type setup, but then we erred away from that. We didn't want to upset the apple cart, and also it gave us the opportunity to sort of cross pollinate players from Spain and Argentina then that we'd never get to see, because we'd get to see a Coelho and a Galan play, but we may not get to see Tapia play with another high ranked Spanish player. So that was the idea with LeBron and Tapia's pairing. Of course, LeBron has subsequently pulled out of the event due to his recurring injury, and so we're not going to get to see that Tapia LeBron combination, which was going to be a once of its kind, perhaps never seen again type of thing. So yeah, we've missed that opportunity, but I think we have a lot of unique combinations, a lot of interesting pairs that we're looking at as well.
On the LeBron one, of course, it's one of the most unfortunate things to happen, but injuries do happen. We've seen players miss out on World Cups across different sports, Olympics. This is the type of thing you can't avoid. But what is the backup plan? Do you have any news on a replacement as yet?
We've always had backup plans. It would be naive for us to go into this without having a backup plan for players' injuries. We expected it. We expected potentially another injury coming up, or recurring injury from a player that has been injured. We'll wait to make a final call. So yes, the replacement for Juan LeBron is Jose Diestro. He is unique in terms of being the giant slayer this year. Him along with his partner Esbri have taken a victory over Coelho and Tapia. He is somebody that we felt, from the remaining players that were available, considering we 1 week out from the WPL match tournament and the PPL. So obviously we couldn't get access to any of those players. So we thought Diestro would actually be quite a unique, and that might be breaking news. I think the actual official communication will probably come out a few hours later or something. But depends on when the podcast is revealed. We will have Diestro replacing LeBron. We've had to make one or two squad shifts just to accommodate strength versus strength. So the revised fixtures, which aren't too drastically different from what we'd already put out, will be out probably in the next day or so. We're just finalizing a few things, but by and large, you're still going to see some phenomenal battle. You're still going to see a Tapia versus Coelho, a Galan versus Tapia. Those matches will still take place. And we'll be trying to maximize the amount of time we have the superstars playing against each other.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Another thing, I mean, so you mentioned the PPL, you mentioned the world pedaling in India that's happening now. But what does this say about South African paddle? Where does this put South Africa? An event like this, an organization like 360 Paddle and Gale Paddle coming together, the South African community in large. What does this say about the country's paddle ambitions on a global scale?
Think we are not going to make qualms that we really want to put South Africa on the map and from a paddle perspective. It might take a few more years before we get players breaking into the top 100 from a South African perspective, but our market is so ripe for uh, for international paddle. The interest and the the growth of the sport has just been phenomenal. So I think it is kudos to South Africa that with the we know with these big events which are I don't know the figures from these events, but I'm guessing that we're competing from a weak South African rand perspective here. There's obviously more to the players wanting to come to South Africa than just financial gain. I think the uniqueness of the venue, the uniqueness of the country as a paddle destination has been front and center. Whether the reputation of 360 Paddle, I won't go out on a limb and say 360 Paddle has a global reputation big enough that people would want to join our events. But certainly, if we've always tried to communicate the highest level of professionalism in everything that we do, and by chance they managed to see something that we've put out to market and felt we can trust these guys, then I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of my team for being able to get us to a position where we have international trust of players and agents and the global paddle market. So yeah, it's I think it's a feather in the cap. I wouldn't jump the gun and take too much kudos until we run a proper event. I think there's a lot that needs to happen, a lot to fall in place over the next 4 or 5 days. And yeah, once we can safely say that we've run a successful event, I think then maybe we can pat ourselves on the back. But until then, there's no getting complacent.
So it's all hard work at the moment. The eyes on the prize. Are you able to? I mean, you spoke about the South African rand. Are you able to? I mean, it's no surprise that something like this, to put something like this together, must cost quite a package. Are you able to go into any of that and perhaps some hidden costs that we may not even see? That you were discussing earlier, the platforms that you're putting into the Wanderers Stadium, for instance.
Look, I think we constantly quantifying the costs of the event. We'll probably have a full figure. So when we discussed this with the players very early on, we discussed prize money versus appearance fees, and the players had chosen they opted for appearance fees and not for a prize pool. So essentially, that hasn't been fully quantified because it's not just about how much money the players are receiving for participating. It's also all the costs associated with bringing them to the country and housing them and taking them around. So very difficult to quantify. But yes, it's a very expensive exercise. I'm not even going to make any gripes about that. People are highly critical of us from a price perspective for the event, and I can understand in the economic climate that we're in. Yes, it is on the higher side. However, if we look at the product, what we're bringing to the doorstep of South Africans and the cost of doing so, in terms of the uniqueness and the sort of once in a lifetime opportunity that we have in front of us, we believe that the costs are justified. We in a world class venue. The Wanderers Cricket Stadium is not an ordinary hall or a sports theatre or anything like that. It is a massive venue with a lot that comes with it, from everything from security to electricity to everything you don't even think about when about an event. Like I said, the court and the base, the court needs to be a specialized major set, or we're using a specialized major set portable court which need to be built up and struck down within days. We had to build a base on which to house the court. We have to build grandstands. So there's a lot of costs that go into running this event. That's the lot that are not even quantified in terms of bringing the players here, the media, getting the event pushed onto international television, bringing in professional hosts, professional MCs. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and so yeah, we'll sit and quantify it once it's all said and done. Like somebody told me the other day, we're very highly pregnant right now, and there's only one way to push the baby out. So, yeah, there's no turning back on anything. We're gonna go and make a phenomenal event of it and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, look, South Africans here have the privilege to see this live, have the privilege to be there at the stadium. On the one hand, you can tell me a bit about maybe how the ticket sales have been going. Obviously, we have a couple of days left. And then on the other hand, just give us an idea how people can catch this if they're not in South Africa and they still want to view, because you're talking about the live international media. There is a large audience outside of South Africa that I can see and have personally contacted me to ask how can we watch these spectacular matches.
So I think we've seen a spike in sales over the last 2 weeks. We're seeing the VIP for Sunday sold out. Saturday is getting quite close to that as well. There are still tickets for Friday. General access, there are still tickets available for all 3 days, and we expect to see a surge over the next week, especially. I think South African are last minute people. Once they see the court up, when they see the players landing, I think the FOMO is going to hit. But we can't force anyone to come. I think that it's a missed opportunity for any paddle fan, any paddle lover, to come to South Africa. And more importantly, I think we as a country are we're on trial here to see whether we can pull this off, whether we can make a case to the FIP for South Africa to be a destination on the international calendar. And I think if we can show the global paddle market that we have a significant following and we have enough people interested, we can make a strong case for how and why we think South Africa should be on the Premier calendar. In terms of watching it from other countries, we will be on Supersport throughout Sub-Saharan Africa, and we will be on Discover Sport. And over the next next few days, we'll be sending out the addresses and links for where you could get it. But the event will be live streamed on Discover Sport to the rest of the world.
Is there a subscription fee or something like that where the international audience needs to pay in?
I don't believe so, but I'm speaking under correction. That's not something that's in my area, but I will find that out. But I don't think so, as far as I know.
Okay. So, but on the lighter side, I mean, you spoke about the experience, these international players, part of it is you housing them and they'll be landing soon. So, do you have any particular things that you're looking for them to experience in terms of South Africa and the culture, and perhaps particular food places you may want to introduce them to, things like that?
Look, we have very tight schedules with them. They arrive late on Wednesday evening and they have to leave as soon as the matches are concluded on Sunday evening. So there is very little time for us to play around with in terms of showing them anything besides Johannesburg at this point in time. In our initial proposal, which we put out to them back in December, January, we had proposed a 2-day Sun City trip, including game drives, and we thought it would be a good experience for them. But majority of them said that owing to their training schedules and also them being on vacation at the moment, that they couldn't come that early. What we want to do is we actually do want to show them some of South Africa's wildlife and beauty. So we have prepared a game drive on Thursday for whichever players are here to one of the game reserves not too far from Johannesburg. Hopefully we can see some of the big five, and I think just that experience on its own will stay with them forever. In terms of the actual event itself, we want to give it an African flavor, in terms of the African music and so forth, so they can stick, it does stick out in their mind. And I think just, looking at the the where the court is actually in relation to the stadium, it's quite a unique venue, and I think it's going to definitely be something that's going to stick out in their minds. I think we want to show them the best of Joburg hospitality. We want to show them the warmness and friendliness of Johannesburg and the energy. And I think that energy which the South African market is going to bring to the stadium, to the interactions, will be something that will stick with them. And I think that's what we're hoping to do.
And I'm sure this will probably be the first time they've going to play in a cricket stadium.
I can guarantee you 100% this is the first time that they will play paddle in a cricket stadium. I think that's some sort of record because I don't think there's been a paddle court built in a cricket stadium anywhere in the world. So I can definitely say that. I think 19% of them, or maybe even more, this is the first time they're coming to Africa, to South Africa. So yes, it's our opportunity to showcase our wonderful country, and showcase the warmth and friendliness more than anything that we are known for globally. And as a sporting country, I've always maintained that South Africa punches above our weight, whether it be in cricket, in football, in rugby, in many sports, in golf, in boxing, in fighting, UFC. We always have people that are right on the top, in the top echelons of sport. And we, for a country of our size and a country that's resourced as we are compared to many other countries, I always maintain that we punch above our weight. And I think we're going to start doing that with paddle as well. And I think certainly from a 360 and Gale perspective, we are lightweights compared to some of the other event organizers globally. But we've taken the bold step to do this, not just for us, but for the country.
Looking at the future, what type of sort of effect do you expect this type of event to have on the future potential players of South Africa, where they can then start punching above their weight and competing at an international level? Do you think this will be a moment of inspiration for these young players, and will they have some interaction with the stars?
We hope so. I think it would be an opportunity loss if we don't see any of that happening. If we are not motivating any players. I'm quite sure we are, because I can safely say, and I can use my own son as an example. He never knew who Leo Augsburger was until he saw him live at Killarney Country Club last year. And now when I ask him, who's your favorite player? His favorite player is Leo Augsburger. Why? Because he's got such an amazing smash. And that's what stuck out with him. And Leo, at that point, was 28 in the world, right? So it stuck with him. Leo's his favorite player. That's it. Doesn't matter Galankwe or Tapia. Augsburger is his man. I think we're going to see, and even of our paddle playing community in South Africa, we have a very small percentage who are actually following the international calendar and international scene. So we're going to be introducing names like Yangwas and Momo Gonzalez and Dineno. People would maybe know the big three, right? But I think the support cast, we're going to be introducing people to these guys. And these guys are going to do some phenomenal stuff on court. There's no doubt about it. We're going to see some amazing runouts and pop-outs and big smashes and that. And they're going to say, hey, my new favorite player is Pablo Cardona. He's got such a massive smash. The young girls are going to say, he's so cute. I want to be a Cardona fan. I have no doubt we're going to create a new paddle culture. When it comes to players, I think the players are going to see both our elite players, as you could call them, and our up-and-coming players and our youngsters are going to see the levels at which the international players play and operate. And you were at the media launch when Gonza and Bella spoke about, the live paddle compared to watching it on TV and seeing the variations in pace, spin, precision that these players have. And I think we're going to see that, because if we consider the best player in South Africa, so on last Friday night at the 360 Diamond League, we watched phenomenal performance from some of our best players, and the crowd were actually gasping with excitement at how good the paddle was. And if we consider that the highest ranked South Africans are 400 odd, 471 or whatever the case is, in the world compared to where these players are. So the gap is there, and I think we are going to be introduced to that. What we're hoping to do is that we inspire our South African players to say, hey, there is levels we need to attain, professionalism, all those sort of things. So yes, we're not having the South African players play with the international players. We're running a South African championship, which starts at 9 a.m. every morning and runs through to 2 p.m. So it's a competition for the South African players. But what we're doing is we're creating an environment in which our South African players get to interact with the internationals. They'll be sharing the change room. They'll be sharing the eating area. And we do hope that they converse and they ask questions and they, gain some inspiration from the international players in some way so that we can inspire and motivate the next generation of either our current elite players or our under 12s and 14s who are playing in our youth championship at the moment to see, hey, I would one day want to be playing against a Galan or Augsburger or Chozas or Cardone or whatever the case is.
Look, I have no doubt that they will be inspired by this. I mean, you mentioned the pace, of seeing these type of events live. You mentioned Augsburger. Now we're talking of Johannesburg. We're talking of, outdoor. What do you expect with the altitude and the type of ball arrangements that you have with these type of massive smashes at the stadium?
Interesting. We were just literally a few minutes ago before I came onto your call discussing this with the tournament director. We've presented a whole host of variations. Ultimately, Pablo will choose which ball we would use. There's a whole host of balls that are in the contention. Yes, it's. We unfortunately couldn't get our hands on specialized high altitude, low pressure balls, but we do have several options which are low pressure, low pressure, high altitude balls. There's the Bubble Gold that we've been using in the Diamond League, which we're seeing works quite well. Still, it does fly. I think most balls are going to fly at the altitude that we are. We saw it with Augsburger last year. I mean, he was hitting smashes from anywhere and everywhere, and it was flying out of the court. So I think we're going to see a lot of runouts, which is always good. Like I said, so there's multiple balls that we have. It's in Pablo's hands, which one we go with, whether we go with the head, Babolat, Bull Paddle, Wilson Premier. Those have all been put in front of him, and he'll make that decision.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it. Maybe, just to wrap things up in a few, I want to discuss a little bit about the South African, the South African players that will be playing in the SA Champs. But before we get there, on the final question on the international stars, who are you most looking forward to seeing in action?
Look, when I started off playing paddle, I just being an Adidas racket user, I was like, I'm a Galan fan. And my mind changed last year at the Qatar World Cup finals when I attended it and I watched Tapia play live. Coelho was also very intimidating. I think Coelho played with Koki Nieto in that tournament, and he was phenomenal. But when I watched Tapia live, I was just mesmerized by him. So yes, from a personal perspective, I still believe that the most talented player we have on circuit is Augustin Tapia. Not taking anything away from Galan and Coelho, I think they are phenomenal players, absolutely. Personal favorite of mine at the moment is just Tapia.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably the number one favorite across the board. Everyone has their favorites, which is nice to see because most of the fan favorites will be here. But talking of the fan favorites,
I've got messages for people, when we were dropping players' names, that was, when we were announcing the players and we ran polls about who would you like to see next. And I was surprised at how many people were asking for things like Young Was. There was a lot of people that were asking for Young Was. There were a lot of people asking for Augsburger when we did. I was blown away at how many people asked for Chingo. I really thought that, if we were to announce Chingo, that people would be really happy with that. It's unfortunately not going to happen, but Chingo was, one which we missed out perhaps. But But yeah, names that we wouldn't have expected. I think the two are Augsburg and Youngwas. That the South African market really, really wanted to see. There's been other names. If you look at some of the polls recently about who's the breakthrough player of the year, Fran Guerrero has been spoken about very highly as a player that is up and coming through the ranks. That's a player that not many people know about. Deathstroke Giant Slayer. People ask for Paquito. Tolito. I mean, Tolito was. We had so many requests for Tolito.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people will be coming to see very specific things, and I know people upset that LeBron's not coming. I can fully understand that, and my message to those people that are upset about LeBron is like, we are also upset. There's nothing we can do about it. He's a professional player. He has to make a decision about his career. But you are getting 11 superstars. Regardless of which 11, 12 are here, you are getting superstars and you're going to get superstar experience.
So South Africa now. South African Championships, who are the guys that people should look out for? The international audience should look out for it as well, because I'm sure this will this be streamed as well along with the international?
I've yet to. I will double verify that. It's a very good question. Yes, I think there'll be certain matches of the South African competition as we get to the semi-finals and finals. Definitely the finals, but the semi-finals, we are in discussion about that. Look, there are so many talented players, and having the privilege of standing courtside over the last 7 weeks at the Diamond League, where we've taken the best South African players to play against each other week in and week out, we've seen some phenomenal performances. I think I must say on this podcast that this isn't the 24 best players necessarily in South Africa. We've invited players from various parts of the country, from various partners and role players that we believe we needed to sort of nod our cap to as well, in terms of thanking them for participating in our leagues, our tournaments. So we've got a good mix from various provinces. We needed to accommodate players from the other provinces as well, not just Johannesburg-based players. For me, having watched a lot of South African elite players over the last 2 months, there are 3, 4 who stand for me head and shoulders above everyone else. I think Richard Ashworth showed his class. I think he's put a stake down as the number one player in the country. I think there'll be hard to argue against him not, but Adam van Harten and Jason Blakely Milner can definitely put their hands up to compete for that spot. I think them and Luan Krige, for me, are the 4 outstanding players that we have on the South African circuit at the moment. Again, not taking anything away from Tremaine Mitchell, Aiden Carazito, Iggy van Heerden. There are so many good players that we have in South Africa. It's just so good to see them playing week in and week out against each other, but so good to see them all improving their games. But for me, those 4 stand out. If I had to put my money very early on, I'm going to call it and say it's going to be Richard and Eggy against Jason, and it's very difficult. I can't even discount Warren Kuhn here. I mean, Warren's a phenomenal player, and him and Adam have made such a phenomenal. So I think, it's hard to call, very hard to call, but I think we're in for some magic, even in the South African Championship. So people that are coming understand that your ticket is not just for the international matches. The ticket that you are purchasing brings you to watch 7 phenomenal paddle games in a day. You're starting right. You are welcome to enter the stadium from 9 a.m. when gates open, right till 8 p.m. when the last game concludes. You are going to be, witness to 7 incredible matches, regardless of who's on court at the time. So yes, I'm really looking forward to the South African Championship. I think it's going to be very interesting. Players are all pumped up for it. Having chatted to a lot of them last week, they're really looking forward to the event.
Yeah, I mean, I think adrenaline must be at an all-time high for this week. I'm really excited to be on the scene. So I'll be there watching, catching all the action. South African champs, the South African Invitational. I'll see you there. Any last words from you?
Yes, yeah, we look forward to seeing you there and the rest of the team. And yeah, we're just looking forward to the South African paddle community coming out and supporting the event. I think, like I said, the success of South African paddle into the future, a lot relies on whether we can put on a good show. And when I say we, I mean everyone involved with paddle in this country. It's really not about 360 paddle or Gale. It's about South African paddle. And I think that's where our messaging needs to be, that we need to put on a show for the world. And if we are the custodians in the future, or if somebody else is running the event, we need to do that right now and get it right now, so that we can make it easier for whomever runs these events in the future to be able to get South African onto the international circuit. And once we do that, I think our players will start getting on there. But anyway, we look forward to seeing you next week. I wish we still had a week. We look forward to see you in 3 days' time at the stadium.
I mean, if we get this right, we get Premier Padel in the future. I think South Africa is just going to soar with Padel Mania. Thank you, Mohammed. Majam.
Bye. See you soon. Chat later. Bye.